So the other day I was spelunking in the United Kingdom, like I normally do, and I came across a group of women, and weirdly enough, they were all attractive. I felt like I had to videotape this event because I've never seen an entire group of women like this many. There's like six of them, and every single one of them was attractive. And I got water on my damn camera lens, so I was busy wiping it off. And then I realized I had to get home. I had horror movies to review. The Mortuary Collection came out in 2019. It's a horror anthology movie, so it's filled with short stories that have monsters, serial killers, ghosts, and a lot of really gruesome and bloody kind of moments. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love horror anthologies, but there's kind of a lot of them out there nowadays. Now, being a child of the 90s, I grew up on three major horror anthologies. First it was Goosebumps, then Are You Afraid of the Dark, and then Tales from the Crypt. Now, the quality of these TV shows correlates directly with the age group of the target audience. Goosebumps was made for kids, so it's on the bottom. Are You Afraid of the Dark was for teenagers, so it's in the middle. And Tales from the Crypt was for adults, so that's on top. And every single one of those TV shows reached their target audience. If you wanted something for kids, you watched Goosebumps. If you wanted something with a little bit more meat on it, you watched Are You Afraid of the Dark. If you wanted some for adults, you watched Tales from the Crypt. They all did what they wanted very well. This movie, not so much. The main problem with this movie is that it doesn't really know what the target audience is. It's like an adult Goosebumps. Do you want an adult Goosebumps?
No!
Yeah, I didn't think so. Because Goosebumps is for kids. Tales from the Crypt is for adults. You want a modern Tales from the Crypt. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of blood in this. I mean, a dude gives birth through his dick. Sorry for the spoilers, but you know, you could go your entire life without seeing something like that and live a pretty happy life. I, on the other hand, will suffer. The stories, they get longer with each time, and after the third story, one of the characters even calls out the obvious plot twists in the stories. You know, bad things happen to bad people. Psst! Movie! Calling yourself out on your bull doesn't make it okay. Makes you meta, but meta isn't always good. So overall, this movie, I mean, it's okay. It's really nothing that great or that, original. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. If you want a better horror anthology movie, Trick or Treat is phenomenal. And it's good because it's an adult horror comedy for adults. Never Hike Alone came out in 2017. Never Hike in the Snow came out in 2020. Both of these movies are fan-made, all about Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. And this is a first time for the Spooktober tradition because normally we just pick standalone movies. But Never Hike Alone is an hour long, and Never Hike in the Snow is a half hour long. The kind of horror you're going to see in these movies is just classic slasher movie stuff. You're going to see a lot of violence. But unlike classic slasher stuff, I don't think there's any nudity in these films. I think there is one guy looking at a nudie mag, but I think that's really it. So no actual boobs.
No!
These are pretty well-made fan films. Overall, they're fun to watch. I mean, there's really not a lot of high expectations for fan-made films, but these ones, they're definitely above average compared to others. For Never Hike Alone, the only thing I can really say against it is that there are a few plot holes, and by a few I mean just one or two. Other than that, the film is enjoyable to watch, and the plot holes, they really only come up towards the end of the movie, so you're going to enjoy the majority of this film before you're like, Wait a minute. Other than that, give it a watch. And Never Hike Alone in the Snow. Yeah, that one's just as good too. And the only thing that's really going against that is the main sheriff. He's not a good actor. That's just pretty much it. What my main beef between pretty much all Friday the 13th movies that are coming out lately, you have the Friday the 13th remake, and you have these two fan films, they're really missing like the true raw power of Jason Voorhees. And to this day, my absolute favorite version of Jason Voorhees is from the Mortal Kombat X series. I know that might sound a little ridiculous, but hear me out. Jason Voorhees in the movies, for the most part, a lot of his kills just seem like they're done by a really strong dude, and they never do enough. And that's exactly what I want from a killer that's just known for being super f***ing strong and super f***ing tough. I don't want basic ass kills. I want some real creativity here. Not just creativity, I want to see him go over the top more and more. It is honestly my dream to have a Jason remake movie where he just goes absolutely ham on killing so many people. I mean, I want at least like 13 main characters for Jason to just brutally just kick the shit out of. Yes, give me more of that. I want more people getting just ripped to pieces because he's just so f***ing strong.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Sorry about that. Got a little heated. Overall, I'd give these movies 7s. Give them a watch. They're fun. Eden Lake came out in 2008. It is a British horror movie. The kind of horror that you're going to see in this movie is just violence and torture. It's about a young couple who goes to the beach and encounters a couple young British twats, I guess the Brits like to call them. But honestly, this movie. Seriously, it was a brutal watch. I mean, you could say that there is some underlying message here where, parents lead to kids, but honestly, I have absolutely zero empathy with the main gang leader. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have an abusive father? Yeah, that doesn't really justify you beating one of your friends to death and having another kid being burned alive. Fuck you. This movie is a hard watch because not only do terrible things happen, but they happen in group settings. And everyone else in the group is just too afraid to do anything about it. And it's really hard for me personally to not get riled up just thinking about watching something horrible happen and just not doing anything about it. Well, the movie's shot really well. I mean, these are kids, and they are playing kids very well. The adults play themselves really well. The violence is done well. The set pieces are done really well. The characters, they make some pretty intelligent decisions. The main characters really try to be good, but they're just getting really fucking tired of these young British kids just kind of pushing them around and just being shitty. Personally, I would give this movie a 5 out of 10 because it's shot really well. It's just really not my kind of movie in like any sense of the way. If you like that kind of stuff, go for it. And don't get me wrong, I like torture movies. I mean, I'm a big fan of Saw, but this is different. Very different from Saw. The Wolf of Snow Hollow came out in 2020. It is a horror comedy. The kind of horror that you're going to see in this movie is just, obviously a monster and a lot of violence and a lot of blood. This movie is absolutely great. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. I'm just going to get that right out of the way. I absolutely loved this movie. I think the comedy is absolutely hilarious. I think the action is done really well. I think the acting is done really well. I love every bit about it. It's about basically young deputy whose dad is the sheriff, and he's he's a recovering alcoholic, and he's just trying to do his best dealing with all the stressful situations that are around him. And he does not handle it very well. That's kind of the fun thing about this movie, just seeing how frustrated he is and just how much he lashes out at other people. This is such a new situation for the entire town, just dealing with this kind of a murder, and everyone's just like, oh, I don't know what to do. And he just screams, do your job! Just do your job. I'm begging you. That's all you have to do. Do you have anything else to do? This movie's good. I highly recommend it to anyone who likes horror comedy. This is one of my new favorite movies. Attack the Block came out in 2011. It's another British horror movie. The kind of horror that you're going to see is a lot of violence, a lot of blood. Essentially what it's about is a small gang are basically at the forefront of an alien invasion happening on Earth. And right away, these alien monsters, I mean, they're really not that much of a threat, which is kind of my main problem with this movie, other than the fact that, you know, there's a bunch of British teenagers just trying to seem super hard, and maybe I just have a bad taste in my mouth from eating lank, but whenever I see young British actors trying to be super tough and super badass, it just comes across more annoying than actual, like, badassery, or whatever the fuck the word would be. But my main problem are the monsters. They're a problem because they're really not that hard to kill. I mean, this is a rule for all of your horror movie monsters or villains or whatever. If they're easy to kill and don't pose that much of a threat to the main characters, they're not a very good villain. I mean, they do kill some of our main characters, but some of the main characters are just teenagers, and they're not your typical, like, 25-year-old Hollywood actor playing as a teenager. These are actual teenagers playing like their own age. So they're not that jacked, and they're really not that intimidating, and yet they are able to kill these things with bats, samurai swords, and small arms fire. How long do you think these things would have lasted if they landed in America? Or, now here's a thought, what if they landed on Earth in the middle of the fucking day? These pitch black gorillas wouldn't be able to do shit. These things are mostly a threat because of they have the element of surprise in the middle of the dark, and they're in a country where there are not a whole lot of guns around. And this goes the same for the werewolf in American Werewolf in London. I'll be talking about you later, don't you worry. I mean, they're not intelligent, they're blind, so they just go off of their senses. They're more like gorillas, and it kind of begs the question, like, how did they develop, like, planetary travel? Was it, like, accidental? Or were they born in the vacuum of space inside comets and then just, I don't know, with space wind go planet to planet populating it? I really don't get how these things could have gone from one planet to another, each on their own individual comets. I really don't get it. I also don't really understand their motivation. I mean, did these things really just eat everything on their entire planet and just think, yeah, we're gonna send a couple dozen of us with one female to another planet and, yeah, decimate an entire planet that they have absolutely zero intel on? Really? I don't know. Anyway, this movie overall, I mean, it's okay, but a similar movie would be Gremlins, and Gremlins is way more entertaining because it had a lot of fun with their monsters. Because their monsters were fun. These monsters are supposed to be a threat, and they're really not much of a threat. I'd honestly take any other movie like that, Gremlins, over Attack the Block. It just doesn't really do anything new for me. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10.